chapter of Gather Together, Grow Together. We provide transportation, affordable transportation. All right, Joe. We haven't played that intro in a while, but as I said, I'm back. So we're doing the thing. You know what time it is. It's Wednesday. It's the best hour of your week. It is tipping points and puzzle pieces. Hit the horn. All right. I'm so glad that you can join us today. Usually I tell people the weather. It is 49 degrees. It's 1:02 p.m. in the afternoon. But you know what? I don't want to wait. You don't want to wait. You're not here for me. You're here for him. Mark Boatwright Frost. Let's bring him on.
Hey,
How are you doing?
I'm doing really well, but that last statement about they're here for me. I think next week I'm just going to throw the presentation at you, and I'll take some time off.
No, you're the engine that makes it go, right?
The little engine that could. I think
Yep,
I can.
that's-
I think I can. I think I can. I think I can.
Well, oh man, you had a little soul when you were doing that.
Well, it's a jazz warm up. I was like doing the bass while you were playing one.
You like that? So
Oh God, yes.
shout out to Quincy Blackman, who works at the Bainbridge Island Museum of Arts. He made that music for me. And so I said I
awesome.
wanted some Coltrane, Miles Davis. What do you think? Did he do a good job?
I think he did really great. Matter of fact, reminds me of a meme I saw recently of Miles Davis. It says, "If you ever hit a wrong note, it's the next note that makes it or breaks it."
Hey, Mark, can you filibuster just 1 second? There's someone at my door and I really need to talk to him for a second.
I can filibuster.
All right.
So today is going to be a day answering Marwan's impertinent question before the question. So what we're going to talk about today is transitions. And so consider this part 3 of the last 3 episodes of Tipping Points and Puzzle Pieces. The first one was about community for all and how community is powerful. And hopefully that got your little juices running and your brain ticking, and you're thinking about communities and the power of the people. The last one was about the economy. That was an hour and a half long. We laid it all online for you. We put it out there so that you would get an idea of how our economy and capitalism formed and became the engine, the anti-human engine it is. We'll talk a little bit more about that today as we go through a presentation that Marwan will set up in a moment. This one is about transitioning and thinking about transitions and some of the traps in the way that are set by our culture to keep us from moving forward. Now, we've talked about that in all 3 of them. And we're going to come back around to them again and say it in a slightly different way because not everybody hears the same way. And so we try as hard as we possibly can, given our own limitations, to say things in different ways so that you hear them in a way that is meaningful to you. And you will come together with us and bring your puzzle piece to the table so that we can create a picture for tomorrow. And tomorrow being a future where humans matter, which I think we can all agree right now is not what we have. So I'm hoping Marwan comes back fairly quickly because I'm running at the end of my filibuster here. But I think you'll get a lot out of this. We are going to start going down the presentation path a little bit more so that you have a visual cue that goes along with what we're talking about. Because I feel sometimes people get lost in our conversation. And while we're modeling the behavior that we're talking about frequently, it doesn't always necessarily come through that way if you don't have a point of reference. So we will be mixing it up a bit more. Right now, presentations are the thing and probably will be through the end of the year or at least through episode 100. And then next year, we will start going back to a mixed format between conversation and presentation. We really would like you to join in with us and give commentary, ask questions, because that will bring us to a place where we can meet your needs. And he's back.
Absolutely. So you got a PowerPoint today. You ready to jump in?
Yep. And
Yeah,
don't worry, folks, don't worry that we were talking about him while he was gone. It's okay. Yeah, no, we're ready for the PowerPoint. So, as I said when I was starting the filibuster, is Marwan has these impertinent questions about asking the question before we discuss the question or before we discuss the answer. So, this is the third piece of a three-part series. First one being community for all. Now is the now is the last week was the capitalism, and this week is transitions. How we're going to transition. And Rob, good afternoon to you too. Now, Marwan says I can control this, so let's see if that works. And it just opened the thing back up. Let's see if I can.
You see the arrow? It says 1 of 21, and then you see the arrow.
There we go. Okay.
Boom.
All right. So we're going to do a little recap of the last two. In the community for all, we talked about land of confusion, how words and communication and co-opting, which are some of the traps I talked about. One of my favorites is when somebody says, well, who's going to pay for this? How's this going to get paid for? How are you going to fund this? When you have an idea and you haven't gotten it all worked out yet, and you haven't got people on, and you haven't brought the resources to the table, that question is about the dumbest question anyone can ask, but we're taught to ask it because there's no way that you can answer that question.
Okay.
It's designed specifically to stop the conversation because you've just touched on something that makes somebody uncomfortable. We have hundreds of those traps.
Let me jump in there because you told me about this before, and I hadn't looked at it in quite that way as it being a conversation stopper. And upon further thought on that, I've got to agree with you, right? As soon as you say that, well, who's going to pay for it? How are we going to fund it? You're out of the solution mindset, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, and they were never in the solution mindset. They just want you to shut up. So they're asking that question because most of the people that ask that question wouldn't know the answer if you told them. Well, it wouldn't matter to them. All they want you to do is stop talking.
Right.
And there are thousands of those traps within our culture to stop change from occurring. Okay, so then we talked about we the people, from neighborhoods to grassroots networks. We talked more about that in the capitalism set, and we're going to talk more about that today because that is the key to change, is making that happen. Now I have to look around my camera here. So, and then puzzles in perspective. Everyone is a piece of the puzzle. Everyone, even the guy who asks about money and doesn't really care about the answer, just wants the conversation stopped. At some point, he will bring his piece to the puzzle, and we'll talk a little bit about that today.
Mark, when we do talk about it, I think in that there is an insight to have the flip side, right?
Yeah. It's a piece of the puzzle. It gives you, if nothing else, it lets you know where someone is at, so you know where to meet them at.
And it fills in your blind spots that you
absolutely. And the world is changing, so we've got to fix it together. No one's going to fix it for us. And I know there are a lot of people out there that are diehard Republicans and diehard Democrats and diehard independents that think there's a political solution to this. I just want you to watch the news with your blinders off for a little bit, and you'll see there really isn't, because they're doing what they're going to do until we come together and tell them what to do. Right. And for that to happen, we have to come to agreements ourselves. It's the work that needs to be done. Then we talked about capitalism. We talked about history, barter, money and assimilation. We talked about the loss of the human focus. I'm not going to go into detail on this, so I really recommend you go back and watch that one. I'm extraordinarily proud of it. And I think that you should watch that, and you should watch the entire series to kind of get perspective on this. We talked about Maslow's hierarchy, and Marwan decided he was going to use that slide in his presentation, so that's cool. We talked about the shell game, that there's no marble, and they keep moving the cups around, and nobody really wins because there's no marble in the game. We talked about the terms of Bohica and Fubar. We'll go back to that another time. And then we talked about the future and what the future could look like. We're going to continue that conversation today to talk about transitions. And the reason that economics happened is because Marwan asked a question in community, and during the economics discussion, he asked one about transition. And so as he keeps asking questions, they set the tone for next week's slideshow. So ask away, Marwan. Okay, let's go here. So this is also a recap from last week, but I added one to it because I had some interesting thoughts. So Alexandra really was touched by this slide. She was like, she said it kind of opened her mind to thinking about things. So what does innovation look like when profit is not a motive? And I'm going to have a slide that talks about that to some degree. What does resource usage look like? What does quality of life look like? What does human relationships look like when control is not a motive? And what does transparency look like? But the one I added after thinking about this yesterday is, what does healthcare look like without a profit motive?
Mm.
You know, there's an old saying out there that no one's going to cure an illness when there's more money to be made by having sick people. And it's sad and scary and incredibly cynical. But you wonder if it's not a little bit true. We had COVID. I was thinking, this started off with me thinking about COVID because I was writing the bus in Bainbridge Island, and I was thinking about how how riding the bus has dropped off like 70% since COVID, and a lot of people haven't come back.
70.
Yeah, the buses aren't doing as well as they used to do by a long shot.
Wow.
Um, and that's my guesstimate. There's no statistic on that I've seen, but it's like there are much fewer ridership. And it's a really good service and it's really useful. And we should be doing it for the environment and a lot of other reasons. But it's not being used because people are afraid to come back on the bus. And I started thinking about COVID, and I started thinking, we could have been way more prepared for that than we were. God knows we had 30 or 40 years of warning. Where was the work in the medical industry? And I thought about it and said, well, what if there wasn't a profit motive yet?
Mm-hmm.
And so when there was suddenly a profit motive and the government was shelling out money to make it happen, look how fast we got a solution. Yeah. So what does healthcare look like when there's not a profit motive? Do we get healthier? Do we start looking at gene research? Do we start looking at seriously looking at DNA research? Is it come off of the back rooms where people are coming up with ideas and become something that we can all have access to in 5 or 10 years? All right. So here's the truth about transition. We have to come together. We have to do the work. We have to bring our pieces to the table. There's no light switch. I know we've been told that somebody else is going to do it for us. That's a lie. We've been told again and again that we can solve everything in a half an hour. Just look at the sitcoms and the movies we watch. It's not true. We have to do the work and we have to do it together. And it's really scary stuff. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. Okay. So the animation just completely disappeared on this one. All right. So do we have it all figured out? Nope. This is for you, Marwan. And then the Ouija board's supposed to appear and say, knock yourself out. If you want the answers, you can ask the Ouija board because we won't have the answers till we have the answers. We have to come together and work and figure it out. That's just the way it's going to happen. And if it doesn't happen, consequences are pretty dire.
Well, and honestly, for those of us that have any age on us, I'd say 24 and up, you've seen what's been done and what hasn't been done in regards to the political landscape. Mm-hmm. And it is going to be we, the people that make that change. We have to do something different, and we have to start now. And we cannot rely upon, or I would say electing people to positions is just a very small part of it, right?
And we don't get choices on who we elect. The parties get choices on who we have to elect. So we have to address that first. And there's a lot of ways to do that. And there's a lot of conversation that have to be happen. Marwan, I'm going to ask you to do something for me because this is not doing any of the animations. So I need you to bring the one up and launch the one outside of here and share a screen because I need the animations for the next several slides. They won't work without it.
Gotcha. I could do that for you.
Thank you much.
Hot second there.
Yeah, this is great if I don't have a story being told. Go back one. There we go. So we'll start from here. You're going to have to forward it, I guess. Okay, so now go to the next slide. Oh, perspective. Okay, so that shows that we have to do it together. Let's have a party. Let's bring friends over. Let's bring people we don't know over. Let's get to know each other. Let's figure out how our differences make us stronger. Next slide. Okay, so how to reprogram a toxic cultural AI. Now, we've talked about this before. I'll just do a quick refresher here. I look at our cultural framework as supposed to be a social contract. Right now, it's basically being run like an artificial intelligence that's focused on making money for the few. And we kind of went through that. I'm not going to go into great detail here, but here's how we fix it. Go ahead and hit the next, just one forward. The answers are here. Go to the next slide, and we'll talk about what that picture looks like. Okay, so this is our new kind of logo for the Kitsap Resiliency Project. I found this great circle outside, and it's got the purple piece right in there to show MAR1 and G2 and all of that. But if you go forward just one. Okay, so the Kitsap Resiliency Project, or resiliency projects, because as we're building this, we're saving the information and formatting it so people can use it to create their own resiliency projects wherever they are, and it'll be available to you as we move forward. We provide a framework. Think about the edges of a jigsaw puzzle. We help create a space in which this can happen. Next, one more forward. You are the puzzle pieces. Bring your information, your thoughts, bring your effort. And when the picture starts forming up, however discordant and chaotic it seems because of the different people, it starts forming a lot more questions, a lot more different ways, a lot of different perspective. So we can start meeting people's needs and having people talk to each other and build some consensus on what needs to happen next. And then the next one, forward it one more. Oh, that one. Okay, and then, the center is what we're looking for: resilient communities that work together to drive change and create grassroots networks. So how's that work? Let's go forward one. So I just created this. It's an expansion of the other ones that I've done. If you look at the guy on the very far left, we look for a community ambassador, somebody to go to their neighborhood and engage their neighbors. Now, when you do that, some neighbors are going to engage, and some neighbors are not going to engage. They're going to say, go fish. I don't want to hear about it. I don't care what you're selling, whatever. Then you get the ones that are engaged to garden together, and you create a community garden. And more people get curious and start asking questions. Some get involved, some don't get involved. But as you go along, people become more aware of something going on where they're not part of it. And then when harvest happens and you start sharing the food amongst everybody, more people get engaged. And when that happens, hello, Raymond. When that happens, you get a growing engagement, and then you can start making community connections. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, next slide. Okay, so this is from the other one of the other presentations, but a little bit different way of looking at it now. So we have a neighborhood. The neighborhood sends a representative of the community. Now, the neighborhood has come up with its own set of priorities that they're interested in. And then the representative goes to communities, and they all have their own sets of priorities. So you go through the consensus process again while reporting back to your neighborhood, so there's complete transparency in setting some priorities to move forward with. And then that same is repeated until you have a grassroots network that can go make some changes. Now, what do those changes look like? Why would you bother with this? Well, let's talk about food security, making sure that there's food locally. We're a peninsula. We get cut off, there's no food. Water, making sure that if the politicians are talking about bringing in 500,000 more people, and we have a population of 266,000 now, we have to ask, is there enough water for 500,000 people? If not, then why the heck are we talking about it? This is us holding the political and economical people responsible for their desire for more income at the risk of all of us. So that's how you build a grassroots network. The grassroots network is focused on our humanity. If you forward it one more slide. Why would we do this? One more hit. Because dominoes are cascading. If you don't know this, you need to look outside. Climate change is happening. We have Cascadia rising on the horizon. We have an economic crisis starting to unfold. It takes time to happen, so we're not aware of it until it does. And when it does, you're going to have that blonde girl from the Kitsap Resiliency site going, "Oh my God, why did nobody tell me?" It's a mess. We
I
need
think
to fix
it's
this
going to be
now.
worse than that. It's going
Yeah,
to be way worse than that.
it is, and it's already starting to get worse as we see growing homelessness. We're starting to see food crisis. I know it's Thanksgiving, but I went to Trader Joe's last night. The shelves were empty. I've been to grocery outlets several times in the last couple months, and their shelves are emptier.
Well, and to that end, I was reading an article on the fact that our food banks nationwide are short on food. They don't have the same level of food, and the need is up from last year.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
serious issues.
Yeah, there's a lot of serious issues going on, and we need to figure out how to fix them. Next slide. Okay, so this is a replay, and I didn't go back and fix the back of it. This is just, I'm going to do a real quick touch. The top corner in red is today. We have confusion and inaction. Nobody knows what to do because nobody's been told that this is happening. Everybody's confused and watching cute cat videos and people dancing on TikTok and whatever else. And they're not, the Gen Z seems to be aware that things are going on, but they don't feel like they're empowered to do anything. The boomers are trying to avoid knowing that we're going to do anything, kind of like our state. Um, yeah, that was a little dig. Sorry. Then in the near future, we're going to have cascading consequences. We're already seeing it. Food shelves, food shortages, water issues are all happening now and going to get worse. Homelessness, the unhoused homelessness, shelter, cascading rise and rising prices, cascading homelessness. It's just bad, and
Mental
it's
health,
going to get worse. Huh?
mental health.
Mental health, absolutely. You can't get through this and still be sane. I'm sorry, as one crazy person, and I'm only saying that somewhat facetiously. I have to deal with crisis all the time because I'm trying to do this work and I'm watching it go down, and I'm trying not to go into depression.
Right.
Then in 5 to 10 years, we have planned or unplanned reaction depending on what we do today. And then we have planned resiliency and development and action, or we have darker red and blood in the streets. And I don't mean that metaphorically, I mean that in a very real sense.
Very, very little. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, next slide.
And we can look around globally and see it, right?
Yeah. And it's happening in the US. We're just not reporting on it.
I was just getting ready to say that. I said, you can, we do report on it. We just don't pay attention to it.
Yeah. And we don't report on it much.
No, I was watching King 5 News this morning on YouTube and just looking at all the little snippets of, this woman unfortunately was decapitated by someone. These
Geez.
teenagers killed another teenager in Las Vegas. I mean, it.
Well, what about the fatal shooting here last week?
Right.
And I don't remember seeing much of that reported except on Facebook.
Yeah.
And they had Sylvan Way closed for a day and a half while they were doing the crime scene.
And you're talking about what, 2 blocks from your house?
4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's here. It's not another state over or across the other side of the country or another country. It's right here.
Yeah, it's right in our own backyard. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So why now? Just read it, folks. You start, and it takes time. Starting sooner gives us more results. It's just that simple.
Is it fair to say that a lot of folks look at the fact that we've got to go through change and the takes and the time and the two, and it's like we want to get to the happen, but it's so far away that we don't even want to start down the path of change?
Well, remember the first or the second slide? There's no light switch, folks.
Yeah.
You do the work. If you don't start doing the work, and let's be honest, 20% of you will do the work, 80% of you will ignore it, and the hope that the 20% get far enough along before the feces hits the fan.
Well, and this is really a great snapshot whenever you pull up the guy with the head in the sand, right? That's really what it is. It's like, man, change is going to take time to happen. It's not going to be easy. I'm going to have to come out of my comfort bubble. I'm just gonna stick my head in the sand and hope when I pull it up, some other people, uh, like Mark, have taken it on and made the changes, and everything's gonna be okay. And if that's what you're expecting, you're in for a rude awakening.
Yeah, remember that butt in the air? Makes a great target for a foot. And if you're a guy, think about where that foot's going to hit. Next slide. All right. So let's talk about the doomsday clock. I just want a moment of reality here. The Union of Concerned Scientists have been doing this for decades now. They have a clock that they change and they advertise it, and virtually nobody knows about it anymore. And right now it's been set at 90 seconds to midnight. Sometimes it's gone down to 1 minute to midnight. Sometimes it's gone down to 30 seconds to midnight. And originally it was set because of the nuclear arsenals and the fear of nuclear war. But nowadays it has climate change geared in it, financial crisis in it. It has all of these various factors into it. And we're 90 seconds from midnight. Midnight is bye-bye to humanity.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a whole bunch of scientists around the world that work these algorithms and calculations out and determine how much in danger we are. So while you're putting your head in the sand, think about the fact that we have seconds, 90 seconds left. There's a huge long thing here. I haven't had time to, I don't even know who did it.
I did.
Oh, did
It's
okay.
kind of explaining what the doomsday clock is.
Got it. Okay. So just think about that for a second. Things are not okay. It doesn't matter how many $15 an hour jobs we're announcing when it takes $28 to live in a house. When we talk about healthcare and the fact that they don't really give a damn about you, it's about the profit and selling you drugs. And anybody who wants to challenge that, look at the opioid epidemic and how that started. It didn't start with a street pusher, folks. It started with your doctor. So you look at this, and we have problems. The only way we can fix it is together. And we'll talk more about that in a slide or two. Go ahead and one forward here.
And that, looking at the article and the snapshot that you took, that was actually on my birthday. So
Yep.
Great.
Happy birthday, Marwan. Okay, so this is one of the slides I really needed you to have the animation on. All right, obstacles and illusions. We imagine obstacles that are frequently illusions. When we think about capitalism, and I could have put a lot more in this picture, but nobody would have, they would have looked like a Rorschach blot. Everybody thinks of capitalism and government together. And I want to say something here. Capitalism is a form of an economic engine. Our government is democracy. They are in no way linked. Okay? A democratic government can have any form of economic engine it wants or what we want. But we look at capitalism and we think this giant war machine and this giant behemoth that's going to scare us and overtake us if we have anything to say bad about it. Okay, go forward one, because I want to talk about culture and then we'll go back to capitalism. And when we think about culture, and I want to change this way of thinking, we think about drumming and music and burqas and cultural clothing and different kinds of foods. We think about books. These are things that we think about a culture are the things that are inherent within cultures. Music, dance, things like that. And to just show how old a fart I am, I put in hip hop and rap because that would not have been in my thinking about culture in this sense, but I wanted to make sure it's a little more inclusive. So let's go one further forward, and then we'll go back to capitalism. So what capitalism really is, okay, that's the obstacle we depiction. What it really is a whole bunch of people trying to get the most money they can to fill the holes inside of them. Because it's really about our disconnect as humanity. It takes humanity into account, not at all. That's hence the graveyard there and the woman being blamed. And it's about othering people. It's about making people not pay attention to the fact that you're basically picking their pockets. And look around you coming into Christmas season. It is never more apparent than right now.
Facts.
It is confusion. It is not an engine ready to roll over you if you think badly of it.
Can I say something there?
Sure.
I've been struggling with this for the last few years, and the holidays come up, and folks are very compassionate, like, oh, these kids, they need.
You need to move your mic because you're starting to fade out.
Am I fading? They need presents. They need things to open up. They should have these things, and in a lot of ways, it's just socializing and training another generation to be hooked on, addicted to things, right?
Yep.
Expectation of I need to have things. I need to have, and all of these wants, all these ancillary, gifts that are given. I watched the years of the things that I got for my own children, right? And it's like, oh, I'd rather play with the box or something that didn't cost anything, but I'm buying all these things because that's what I'm supposed to do.
Mhm.
And then you just see, right? You have indoctrinated your children into this, capitalistic society and have created consumers, right?
Yep. And how long does that last before they go into landfill?
Or sit in the corner because it doesn't have batteries, right? Or you're hiding it because it makes all these noises that you bought, and now it's driving you crazy. So oh, we're just gonna put that over there. I don't know where your toy is, sweetie. you know.
Yeah, it's a trap. It's one of the traps, and that's what actually feeds right into what I was going to talk about on the capitalism. It isn't a machine. It is a machine. It isn't a whole bunch of people rolling over the top of you. What it is a system with a whole bunch of traps in it to keep itself empowered.
Yeah.
So if you hit one more slide, so we can go to the culture again. Okay, so and I know this is a little small, but we'll work with it. Um, Culture is actually a framework for us living and working together. And if we come together and put our pieces together, we can create a framework that is human centric. Our education can actually teach us tools and skills to live life. We could be innovating. I put my, if you see up there right above the We the People, I put my flying car up there. If we have unbound innovation, we can do a lot of things because we're not worried about Ford being able to sell it and make a maximum amount of profit on it, or GM or any of the others. Um, we have people working together in gardens and growing food. So we have food security because people working together to do that. We have mass transit. Now, mass transit is taking a bad rap. As I said about COVID, it took a big hit on that. Mass transit is a wonderful thing. And I know everybody wants to have their cars, and they're not coming to take your cars away any more than they're coming to take your guns away. Okay? That's a myth to keep you buying cars and keep mass transit from happening. Because the car manufacturers would rather you pollute the world and buy their cars so they can get richer than being in comfort. Now, for me, there's nothing better than to sit down on a boat or a train and take my time reading and doing some work or looking out the window and seeing the world go by. I'd rather do that than be on the road with the rest of you a-holes, okay? Because I see how you drive. And I don't really want to take my life into my hands that much. And it's about diversity and equity and inclusion. And it's about having leisure time because we don't really need to work as hard as we're working to get what we've got. It's an illusion. Oh, and let's talk about robots and AI and all of that fear being generated now, and the reality of the fact that robots are taking people's jobs. We changed the model for what your job means and let the robots have the jobs and educate you to innovate, to serve, to create, to manage systems. We can have a whole new world. We just have to decide to do it. It's our cultural framework that needs to be reprogrammed. And there it is. Next slide.
Well, what I would say to that is, I know that there was an article where Amazon is deploying 750,000 robots, and you see the automation at McDonald's, which you've heard me talk about before in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And part of it is you have to be the decision makers, right? So as these companies are trying to maximize profit among everything else, right? If we can get a robot that's going to do it, not get tired, not need a break, not need a cigarette break, not get sick, right? And then all they need is the engineers and the mechanics to make sure that it's humming and buzzing. Then you have to be a part of the solution and make your voice heard at the table so that
Free. create a new foundation.
That's right. So that net isn't gone, right? Because it's wiping out the middle class, and it's not even the what do you call the lower rung of the socioeconomic? You've got middle class, you've got
Survival.
yeah. Well, I mean, right below the middle is also going down a rung, right?
Right.
And so, but the way that you stop that is to come together and make sure your voice is at the table, right? You know, you see those things in unions, but and I'm not here to support unions per se, but we need to have our voice at the table. To make
They were created for a reason.
Yeah, they were.
And this is a model that we can create together. If you think that you can't do anything, you're right, alone. But coming together with people, you can change everything. You just have to be open to having the conversation.
Yeah.
So here we are at the grassroots change. So what is that really? It's a whole bunch of people coming together because, again, political math. If one person goes to his politician and says this needs to change, politician goes, okay, and then he forgets all about you 30 seconds after you're out the door. If 100 people come, it's a different conversation. If 1,000 people come, it's a whole different conversation. But you can't just show up and then go home and think it's fixed. You got to stick to it. And that's what grassroots change is about. Next hit, please. So I think this has got one more. Yeah. It's about we the people. And by the way, we the people, the first 3 words in the United States Constitution, it is in our laws that it's going to require we the people. So get off your butt, become one of the people. Next. Okay. So the difference between revolution and evolution, because people go, I'm angry, I'm going to blah, 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 and I'm going to go take down the government, and I'm going to buy an AR-15 and whatever else. That's an illusion. It's not even a roadblock. It's not an obstacle. It's an illusion. Okay? The BS you're being sold to think that a revolution is going to fix the problem is an illusion. If you don't believe me, look at history. Go forward one. History will tell you to revolve is to, when revolution is used without changing of the framework in which the problem was created, before long, the cycle begins again and we go right back to where we started. Look at any revolution in history and you will see that is absolute truth.
Yeah.
Next slide. Now, this is a little convoluted, and I understand that. And when people think of evolution, they think of, growing feathers or, evolving physically, and that's part of it. But there's also a psychological and emotional evolution of humanity. We have the ability to intentionally choose to create a new fundamental framework. But we have to do it together, and that's intentionally evolving our culture and our society as human beings. So one more slide on this one, one more touch on this one. Now, I don't know if most of you know who this man is. His name is Albert Einstein, considered one of the most brilliant people in the world, even though he helped develop the atomic bomb. And he had some really interesting things to say, but one of the most significant things is that the problems we face today cannot be solved with the same level of thinking we were at when we created them. We're going to have to think about things differently. We're going to have to do things differently. We're going to have to create different solutions. Yeah. And we're going to have to do it together.
Yeah.
Next slide. All right. So the transition process. I mean, everybody's going, well, how do we do this? Well, first you have to admit there's a problem and understand the problem. And you have to recognize, and I didn't write this down, but you have to recognize your fear of it. Fear is a key piece in all of this. We are afraid of change because we are afraid that we are not enough to do it. Okay? That's why we come together. Resources. We have to know if we can address it alone or we need more people or more resources to address it. We have to understand the problem and then we have to understand what it's going to take to change it. And we can address any problem of any size this way. Okay, so the next one is planning. How can change be accomplished? If you don't have the answer, find people who do have the answer and sit down and work with them and find a way to move forward. What needs to be done? You have to answer the questions of what needs to change and then how it can be changed. And then you start moving into action, which you start the process of change. You correct for unknowns because what is it, the old saying, no plan ever survives contact with reality. So you have to understand you're going to be changing and you just keep going one foot in front of the other and you will get where you need to go. Progress can be incremental, but it's still progress.
I don't think I've heard that one.
Oh, plans never survive contact with reality?
Yeah.
I'm a project manager, so you hear that all the time.
I like it.
Yeah. There was a early saying, best laid plans of mice and men oftentimes gamma glay, which means go astray.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so change never stops. It plateaus. And you need to normalize the process of change because it's going to be part of your life. Change never stops.
Yeah.
But being able to change it in a positive way, if you normalize that and you normalize the process of keeping it positive, of analyzing, of adjusting, of doing the work, it becomes easier. Next slide.
Yeah, just to add my own piece into that. I have conversations with folks on my team, and I focus a lot on that, right? A lot of it is attitude. You can go into things with a positive attitude or a negative attitude, and you actually have a lot of power in regards to how other people react in your orbit, right? If you come in and you're hopping mad and you're frustrated, right, the rest of the room is going to feel that tension and that stress, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you do it long enough, they're going to start to absorb those same traits, right? There's a saying that says that you are the 5 people that you hang around the most. I don't know how true that is, but I think there is some truth in it, right?
There's a lot of truth in it. We are interconnected, and those trends tend to affect everybody around us.
So it's critical to stay positive, right? To look for solutions, to build community, to work on effective communication, and that when you're doing that work individually, as you go out into the collective and you're using those processes and those tools, you'll find this transitional process, I think, a lot easier to navigate. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. And to be honest about mine, what's happening in the world and what's the world looks like for my 26-year-old daughter scares me spitless. But I'm being positive and I'm continuing to work on it because it's the only way I can affect change that will make it better for them.
And that's what I was saying a few slides ago with the head in the sand, right?
Yep.
It's like, man, it's too much. It's so much. What can I do? Well, I guess I can't do anything. I just feel bad for my daughter. It's like, you got to try, right?
Yep.
And we affect change every single day. We see it. We know it. That's why we get up and keep doing the work we do, because we see the change.
Yes, we do.
And it's fuel. It's energy.
Yep. Next slide. All right. So change is a process of unlearning. And this slide was really good. Unlearning is more difficult than learning because, first of all, if you have to unlearn something, it means you did it wrong the first time and you feel like a failure. And it becomes this whole ego-driven thing about unlearning. But if the information you were given was wrong, it is in no way your fault that you learned the wrong thing. And I will guarantee you that the information you've been getting is wrong. Okay? Because our whole system supports the capitalism role of making the few very wealthy while the rest of us are starting to fall further and further down the chain. So you in no way did anything wrong. But if you don't go through the process of unlearning, which is to identify the core root behind your understanding of something and be willing to change it, then you are wrong and you are at fault. It's work that has to be done. It's extraordinarily hard work, but only you can do it. Here's a cue. Together it's easier.
Another strong slide here. You hear people say all the time, and I use this, I'm a lifelong learner. But what does that really mean, right? If you're learning and you're evolving, that means that you're probably unlearning many different things, right? Because the person, and the Einstein quote, right? The person you were, last year, 10 years ago, and you're looking at things now, you've grown. You have all of these experiences, right? Culture has changed, and so you have to put all those things in to move forward. And that's really what lifelong learning is all about. So when people think they say that, oh, I'm a lifelong learner, I never stop learning. Like, well, how much unlearning are you doing? Are you engaging in that?
And
Love it.
intentional unlearning is hard because you've got to realize that what your understanding of a situation is may not be correct. And then you
Open
have to look at
minded.
it,
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
and diverse in your thinking process. All right, so this picture is a little convoluted, but I love it because it shows a process of connecting all of this information into darker colors and or like parts where you have a misunderstanding or you don't understand the information. The other pieces is new information coming in and how dots are connecting, and you have to become part of the flow and learn how to work with it. So I just put this in there as a visual representation of the process of unlearning, learning, and connecting. I don't know if it'll mean anything to anybody, but I thought it was kind of cool.
I like it.
Okay, and then this one, this is my personal um, way of looking at fright, and scariness. When I have this overwhelming fear of something, of change, of doing something, I picture myself in my head turning around and looking over to see this tiny little mouse sitting on a chair with a lamp making this scary picture on the wall. And then it suddenly isn't scary anymore.
Hmm.
I mean, is that guy scary? Come on. But the image of the picture he projects on the wall is horrifyingly scary, this big, dark, scary thing. And that's where our imaginations go to keep us from moving forward. And a lot of that is pumped up by the information we get by our society around us to keep us from moving and connecting. But really, it's only a scary little mouse. So my tool for dealing with that fear is to recognize the fear, to understand it's unreasonable, and then to look at the scary little mouse that's creating it. And turn the lamp off.
Yeah. But then it would
And
be dark.
huh?
Then it would be dark.
Better dark than having a monster. Or then you can imagine your own monster. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, but
Well,
in the dark, you can turn on the overhead light switch, and all the shadows go away.
and they all go away. Yes.
Yeah,
But
that's
you know
true.
what? Metaphorically, that's great, right? Turn on the light of a diversity of thought. Open
Yeah.
your mind. Bring people in so you can see all the ideas. Work together. I like that.
Yep. And there we are at the end of the slide of this slide presentation, and we have 10 minutes to go to talk about what we came together with here.
Well, let me go ahead and close this. I did want to share something. Let
Okay.
me cancel out of this and just show people. Hold on here.
So, what do you think about the slide presentations? I mean, I've kind of just sprung that on you a couple weeks ago.
I like them. I think it's great for folks that may want to digest this later. They can go right where they need to go. It's a great follow through. It's good for us because it keeps us on topic and moving forward. We could do a little segue and then get back on. So yeah, I enjoy it. I think it's
Okay.
I'm just going to share this here. And I thought this was alarming. I wanted to get your perspective on this. I know this is where you got the information. So,
You got to get closer to the mic again.
oh, sorry about that. Let me pull it down just a little. So, in 2023, on my birthday, we were 90 seconds to midnight. And last year, we were 100 seconds to midnight. But if you go down, let's look at what happened in 2001.
Um, well, there was the millennia, the Y2K scare.
Anything else big happened in 2001?
Yeah, 9/11 wasn't 9/11 2001.
And we were 7 minutes to midnight then.
Yeah.
We are 90 seconds now. That's why I bring that up, right? So this was in 2002. This is the year after. We're
Hmm.
7 minutes to midnight post 9/11, a year post. We are
Yeah.
90 seconds to midnight now. That is terrifying.
Yeah.
In 91, we were 17 minutes to midnight. Only thing I can remember about 91 that was kind of big here nationally was Rodney King, right?
Yep.
um, 14 minutes and 95, 3 minutes and 84. This is probably more your wheelhouse because I was pretty young then.
Which what year we're talking looking at?
84, we're looking at like the Reagan years and the Carter
Yeah,
years.
that was just pre the Berlin Wall coming down.
Hmm.
And that was the ending of the Cold War. It was pretty scary. And remember that this was originally set up during the Cold War to track nuclear arms and the likelihood of nuclear proliferation.
Yeah, this is remarkable. 1953, we were 2 minutes to midnight. That's getting pretty close. But
Well,
90 seconds, I don't think we've been that close
no, it's
ever.
and they're looking at climate change and are in action on climate change globally.
Hmm.
They're looking at and when you go back to 2002 and the fact that we were at 7 minutes and then it changed to
Hmm.
5 minutes. Remember the Patriot Act
Yes.
and the tension globally, and then Iraq and Iran, and basically the militaristic, and let's talk about corporate reasons for securing oil and doing all of those things as we move forward. And you can go to any of these and they will tell you why they made that change.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, people tend to ignore that because they don't want to know. I mean, head in the sand. But I find it very useful that all of these scientists are looking at all of this information and giving us a sense of where tragedy and crisis can occur. So,
The other thing that really caught me today, and I've been having this conversation with several folks, is we're instant gratification society right now. We're a microwave society. We're a right now society, and many groups that I belong to are looking at the immediate. Some look at the near future. Very few look at 5 to 10 years, and hardly any have generational plans or 100-year plans.
which is why we exist. I mean, that is what resilient ecosystems does.
Hmm.
It's the one niche that is very rarefied air. There aren't many people doing this.
But what is it? The WEF? I'm sure they've got very long-term generational plans, right, that are laid out, and so these decisions are being made for us, and we're not putting any input into it. And it's all by design, right? It's like, well, I'm too busy. I've got to work 2 and 3 jobs. I'm on public transit, and it doesn't run very well. At least here in the county, we've got all these challenges, and we have to prioritize it because it's the only way it's going to change. And that's the great trick, right? Is to make you believe that you can't change it, that there is no time to change it, and it's a waste of your time, right? That really, to me, is the great trick that people fall into over and over again.
Disempowerment.
Yeah.
And coming together changes all of that. Remembering we, the people, changes all of that. And you realize how much of a trap of capitalism that is.
Yes, absolutely. And there's so much power when you're looking in the 5 to 10 years, right? That yellow, that planned or unplanned reaction. We can have a more planned reaction and not be so reactionary and all these things. I speak about locus of control. And I talk about take control of your life, right? First and foremost, but then also try to take, control of your community. So, do you control your life or does life control you, right? When the wind blows, are you being blown all about or is your anchor set and you have strong sails, right? And
Well,
you have
if
great
it's just you, you are going to be blown by the winds no matter what you do. But if it's us, it's different. And
absolutely.
there's one of my favorite words for this, and it didn't used to be, but it is now, is capacity.
Mm,
Together, we can build capacity. And capacity allows us to overcome. Without capacity, we crash and burn. With
uh,
capacity, we can overcome.
capacity. I think I spelled that right. Put that in all caps there.
Yep.
And that, you know what? And that's a great point. We're looking at our vessel and how much we can pour into it, and we're like, we have no more capacity, but we're trying to do it by ourselves, and we're we're told to be independent. It's not good to be codependent. We need to be interdependent, but folks are labeling interdependence as codependent, so it keeps you independent.
And here's another trap. Okay, so you're beautifully providing an example when I say words are used against us
Mm-hmm.
and our definition of words. And where do those words come from? They come from them or they, whoever them and they are.
Yeah, yeah. And then we adopt it as a boogeyman. A good friend of mine had a diatribe on Facebook about some issues and some things that are going on in the community. And unfortunately, at some point, maybe they were doing some things at some point, but now they can just sit back. You're so wound up and programmed, you just do it yourself on your own.
And so, here's the thing is we have to find a different way.
Yeah.
And we have to stop looking at the monster shadow on the wall and start looking at the mouse that is casting it.
Yeah.
And we have to think differently.
And
Well,
not
because,
be afraid to call it out, right?
yeah.
And that's where I love this slide too. The awareness, gathering resources, the planning, but then the action is really big. And the more that you do it, you talk about it in different groups, right? Building habits. Oh, it takes 21 days to build a positive habit. That's that normalization, right? Doing that positive action over and over again, working in the garden, gathering other people to work in the garden with you, building community in your neighborhood. The more you do it, the more normalization of that behavior will happen. And then
And the more we reprogram the cultural AI.
There you go. There you go. Facts. And I love the cultural AI because it's almost automated, right?
Yeah, it is.
We're on our own now. We're just following along like lemmings. And we don't have to. We can stop and not walk off the cliff.
And we don't have to have a revolution. We don't even have to be violent about it. We just have to break bread together.
Facts. Facts.
And we have our first garden in Port Orchard coming on the table.
Ah, really?
Yeah, right around the corner from Kalalos.
Oh, nice.
So,
That's
yeah.
exciting.
Well, I'm glad you liked this slide presentation.
Yeah, I did. And it's great because it's just enough time for me to go back and touch on a few things that kind of pricked my ear there. So we have 2 minutes left, or really 60 seconds left. Are we meeting anywhere where we can tell folks where we can?
Sunday, we will be meeting at Cups Cafe on 4th and Pacific. We'll be there to chat. And understand, folks, we aren't selling you anything. We're not going to load you down with paperwork. We're there to answer questions, to make friends, to have coffee, to share time, to begin the process of connection.
Isn't that a crazy thought? If you just come and have a cup of coffee, meet some new acquaintances, maybe they turn into friends, you're actually doing the work. You're not even thinking about the heavy lifting of a doomsday clock, but that is the beginning.
Actually, I have to address Terry. We thought that, Terry. I just hadn't talked to you about it yet because we've been in different directions. And I am going to go down on Sunday and be there.
Gotcha. Terry is already, always ready with correction, and it's always awesome, right?
Yeah, it is. And this is entirely my fault because I put together the graphic and I thought about it. I said, yeah, well, I hate when people don't show up. Mm-hmm. And it's always a good conversation anyhow.
Yeah. But when you have a good team, then you have a Terry to say, hey, not this Sunday.
Yep.
And you're like, hey, I changed the plan, but I didn't tell anyone. It's on me.
Yeah, well. And it would be on me if Terry had other plans, and it would be on me to actually go down there and sit there and wait for people. Yeah, I mean, the thing is that I have lots of people say, well, I got to get involved at some point. I really mean to do this. Do it. It's just that simple. Do it. Come down and make some friends. What do you have to lose? We've shown you what you have to gain. And I think that's my last word.
That's for Terry there. And for those who know what that means.
Yep.
All right. Give us the last word one more time.
Just do it.
Just do it.
We've shown you what you have to lose. We've shown you what you have to gain. Just do it.
All right. Well, we want to wish everyone a happy holiday if you
Yes.
celebrate that. This is a great opportunity. You can think it's a forced thing that we do in this country. It's a good opportunity, and those that watch in other countries also, because we do have viewers everywhere. Um, Maybe use this time to engage, right? Make that relationship. Maybe sit next to that stranger or that distant cousin that you never talk to when you gather and build that relationship and have some of these conversations. I bet you'll find out that other people are thinking very, very much in the same vein as you are. They want to see change. They're not really sure what to do, but they're ready to start that action.
Yep.
So that's the challenge for tomorrow and this weekend. Stay safe, take care of each other, and please give yourself extra time on the road. You don't want road rage. You don't want plane rage. It's going to take time. There's going to be lines. Just get your favorite beverage, get something to read, and woosah. All
Peace
right.
out, folks.
That's it. All right. For Mark Borray Frost, I am Marwan Cameron. This is Tipping Points and Puzzle Pieces, episode 91. We will be back next Wednesday. So stay tuned. No city council tonight. So we will see you tomorrow or next week. All right.